So welcome everybody to the recent installment for TIDE, which is the Diversity Exchange, an organization that is promoting diversity and inclusion within the investment industry. My name is Lydia Ofori. I am CEO of Victoria Lion Partners, a capital fulfillment platform operating from London. On the web chat today, very delighted to welcome Mathew Powley. Now, Mathew is director within the private capital team at Stonehage Fleming, where he's been since 2009. Now, Stonehage Fleming is one of the world's leading independently owned multi-family offices. I believe we have locations here in London, in the US. Matt co-runs the Global Private Capital Funds Program. He is responsible for all aspects of the day-to-day activities of the platform, including manager selection, portfolio construction, strategic planning, and fundraising. Matt is also responsible for managing numerous manager relationships globally. Matt holds the CFA charter and the Kaya charter designation. So welcome, Matt.
Lydia, thanks very much. It's great to see you virtually again. Hopefully get to see you again in person one day, but thanks very much. I'm delighted to be here.
And so things changed dramatically for everybody around the world. I don't think anybody, expected this amount of disruption in our own personal lives, in our work life, and in the market. So I just want to find out from you, how have things changed for you since the lockdown? I mean, you're working personally, and how have you been spending your time?
So, yeah, I think work-wise, generally, it's been pretty good. I'm definitely not missing the commute at all. And things have been pretty seamless from that perspective. I get to talk to my team multiple times a week, either, video conferences or just on the phone. We catch up with other members of the firm. We've had a number of updates with clients on video conference, which went way better than I expected, only because virtual meetings just have such a different dynamic than face-to-face meetings, with delays and people not sure when to come in to speak. And so those have been really good and I think really helpful to our clients. And then on the personal side, I've got two young ones, and so I'm able to spend a lot of time with them, and particularly my 1-year-old who I probably would normally only see for about 20 minutes in the morning before I was off to work, and then the weekends, because I wouldn't be home in time for his bedtime. So that's been really great, building family bonds there. I think though, on the other side of the coin, and probably a lot of people listening would probably resonate, this would resonate with them, is we are so, used to speaking, if I need to ask one of my colleagues a question, or I go over and I speak to them, and, it's very personal. It's very kind of, face to face. Now everything is email, call, or video. And so I find that aspect of it a bit of a challenge, navigating through just avalanches of, quite non-personal emails, and just call after call and video conference calls rather than face-to-face. And so I think that aspect has been challenging. And so hopefully we'll kind of get back to some normality soon.
I think we're all kind of missing that face-to-face interaction with our mates. But on the other side, as you mentioned, having that quality time, family time, it's very, very important as well, right?
Yeah.
And so when we go back to the new normal, I'm not sure what the normal is going to look like. Do you think the situation would change, the way you work now and interact with the community? Do you think that, when we come out of lockdown, things will change for you, or will they remain the same?
You know what? I think they will change. I've even noticed, you can kind of go to shops and you can kind of see people, turning a corner in a supermarket, for example, and people kind of automatically kind of jump back. And so I think there's going to be an element of almost some mistrust, I guess. So hopefully we can get by that, because I'm hoping that what this, can show people is that we do need to be a lot more supportive of each other. And in terms of community, certainly that's the case. Not only with the pandemic, I think that's been going on in the lockdowns, but I think the world has been, reminded of a lot of the very brutal social justices that are in the world. And I think that gives us an opportunity to re-engage with our own communities. And I think that will be important, hopefully, for people once there is, loosening up of rules and loosening up of lockdowns, because engagement with communities and things like that will be increasingly more important if, going forward, I think.
Yeah, it's really important. I picked up your comment about, the social interaction that has, become very, very prominent during the lockdown from different angles, really. Over here, obviously certain people do not have the support that they should have. And that's been quite difficult on them. And then you've got this, social uprising in North America that's impacting the industry all around. And I guess, that brings me to, how manager selection is going to be looked at going forward, as to whether, as we see more tilt towards that, being able to acknowledge that social aspect within investments, and perhaps, highlighting the importance of having diversity and inclusion within the industry. I just wondered, how that will impact manager selection in the future, and perhaps investment strategies that LPs would like to start focusing on going forward.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, ESG, or environmental and social and governance factors broadly, have always been important to us in our manager selection process. But I think what really is coming to the fore now, and what is becoming more important in our own diligence and our own manager selection process, is a real scrutiny on how our managers are carrying out their own businesses. What do their teams look like? From different backgrounds, different experiences, different ways of thinking, because that really, we believe, makes great investor teams. I mean, if you just have a homogeneous group of people, all kind of look the same, all kind of come from the same type of background, all kind of think the same, then I think that's a huge disadvantage. To really finding the managers who can really capitalize on different experiences and different diverse groups of people, and to acquire businesses. And so I think that's going to be more important, not only how they act with their own portfolio companies, and what are some of the positive impacts they're having on society there, but the firms themselves. And let's not kid ourselves. I mean, the industry has a long way to go.
Yeah.
I think what's good, though, is there's more and more talk about it, and there's more and more discussion about change. And now it's not change that's going to happen overnight, but I think what we've been seeing, certainly from many of our managers, is it start to go in the right direction. And so that's going to be increasingly important in our own manager selection process, because it's, this is a global, diverse world, and firms need to represent that the diversity of the global marketplace, because that's where these companies are doing business, and that's this is a globalized world. And so we, our private equity managers should reflect that, and their teams.
I totally agree with you on that one. Now, I'm quite keen to hear from people as well, whether the lockdown allowed them to sort of come up with different innovative ideas, either for work or their own personal lives. I mean, for us, for example, we took some time to revamp our website, for example, and that is innovation on its own. So what's happening with you? Did anything spring to mind?
I think, well, if you'd asked me a year ago if I could do 95% of my job away from home, I would think that was pretty innovative, but not so much anymore, because it's kind of the norms. So looking at what we can do going forward, I think I mentioned the ESG, and I think what so, again, my role is to pick great managers, and I think, private equity needs to innovate. CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs need to continue to innovate. The world is changing very, very quickly, predominantly because of technology, but so many other factors. And so everybody is going to need to innovate if they're going to succeed. And so part of my role is to find those managers who I think have the ability to innovate and continue to innovate, and back founders and business leaders who can innovate. So on one side, I think that's kind of a emphasized focus for us. And then on the other side, I think one of the ways I think we need to innovate is, we look after 250 families around the world. Many of those families are going to be dealing with succession over the coming years, and there's going to be a huge transfer of wealth from the current generation to the next generation. And so I think where we've tried to be innovative is to really engage, these days virtually, with many of those next generation clients, the children of the clients and potentially even the grandchildren of the clients, to really, begin a discussion about what's important to them, because the next generation is almost certainly not going to see the world the way their grandparents saw it or the way their parents saw it, and they're going to want their capital to be invested, to reflect their views in the world. And again, that kind of brings you back to the impact investing piece again, which I think is going to be increasingly important. So one of the ways we try to be innovative is try to engage with them early on and find ways we can find areas that are important to them and ways that we can then go and invest the capital in those areas. The final thing, I think, from a personal side, I mean, innovative, certainly during March and April, you had to kind of find ways to deal with, well, certainly on my side, deal with two small young boys in the house all day long. So I think it's really, coming back to some traditional kind of old school ways of entertainment. And so we had built a rocket ship out of a big cardboard box because my 4-year-old, is obsessed with space. And so I think it's just finding ways that you can kind of adapt, I think can be ways of innovation as well.
That's nice to hear. So speaking about the younger generation and passing things on and the kids, what are you going to take out of this era to say for your kids? When they grow up, they kind of look back on, so this happened in 2020 and this for my dad, give to us, remember the year.
I definitely think, photos for sure. But I think when I think about photos, what I think would be just, really fascinating to them when they're older is to see some of those photos that, really epitomize the kind of era between kind of March and April, certainly. So pictures of empty shelves and completely empty rows of shelves in supermarkets, or, playgrounds with red tape around them and kind of eerie swinging in the wind with no children allowed to play on them. I think, seeing things like that is really kind of, quite weird, and probably will be weird to them later on. I think on the brighter side of things, my kids, had painted a rainbow and put it in the window, and I think they'll probably forget about that in kind of 5-10 years. I think, we held on to it because even though it's a sign of general inclusion, more widely, it's been a focus for the health workers, certainly in the UK, and as well as other key workers, and really just a show of support and inclusion in general. And I think, again, they'll probably forget about that in a number of years, but if we hold on to that and show them in 25 years, I think that would be special.
Awesome. Look, Matt, it's been really great catching up with you. Thank you so much for doing this recording for the Investment Diversity Exchange. We look forward to more conversations, and hopefully the next one would be in person.
Likewise, Lydia. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to see you, and I do look forward to our next catch up, hopefully in person.
All right. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.